Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, everyone. This is Laura Smith on Blog Talk Radio. Good morning. It is 6 o'clock here in the morning, Thursday morning, August the 4th. I'm glad to be here. This is One Child Abuse Survivor to Another. We're on for 30 minutes. It's a live internet streaming radio broadcast from blogtalkradio.com, and the chat room is open. I'll put a link in there to what we're looking at. Robert Burney's webpage is Joy to Me and You, and that's www.joy, J-O-Y, the number 2, MEU.com. Looking at the spiritual integration and inner child healing, really. It's the second portion of what he's talking about as far as inner child healing and recovery. And so it's quite interesting. I'm finding it very interesting, and hopefully other people are too. And, thanks for being here. I appreciate it. I'm just sort of waking up, having a coffee, and, trying to get myself together here. This is, you have to listen at your own discretion, right? I'm not a counselor. I'm not a therapist. I'm just a private citizen paying to do my shows here on Blog Talk Radio, and you have to, just listen at your own discretion. Topics of abuse are very sensitive, and people may find the material sensitive. So, if you think the show might bother you, or topics about abuse or any type of sexual violence or anything like that might bother you, then you need to turn the show off, right? You have to listen. You have to know what's good for you, right, to listen to. And if the show might bother you, then you need to just turn it off, right? Listen at your own discretion. Young people under the age of 18, I just ask that you have permission to listen to my show from an adult, like somebody like, hopefully you have a parent who cares. I know how it is to be in a position where you don't have a parent who cares, but hopefully you do, and hopefully you have someone a coach, a teacher, mentor, somebody, who you trust who can listen to the show with you to help you make a decision, really, whether you should be listening. It's not for younger children, and, there's a lot of adult content on my shows, right? It's all about stopping child abuse and child abuse prevention, and my own story about, my own healing journey and whatnot, but there is a lot of adult material on my shows, so I just ask that people under the age of 18 have permission to listen to my show, right? So thanks, everybody, and we'll just get right into this, the recovery process. This is for Robert Burney. He's a codependence therapist. He's a grief counselor. He's an author. He's written a book called Codependence, The Dance of Wounded Souls, which is just an awesome book, and he's got a lot of material here on his website, and so he's a spiritual teacher as well, and so he really integrates the whole, spirituality, and he says even like his own spirituality doesn't even have much to do with it. It says, what he believes in doesn't mean that everybody else has to believe what he believes. He just says that, everybody, should have or may have their own idea of spirituality, right? And so he's just giving us his take on it, right? He's a survivor, and he's just giving his own recovery process, really, and part of this. And some of the stuff he's written is really his excerpts from his book. And so it's kind of interesting to see what he has to say. I like what he has to say because he's really talking about society as a whole being codependent and being dysfunctional, and it's very true. Otherwise, we wouldn't have the mess that we have going on in the world right now. If things were just okay, right? Obviously, things are not okay in society, and it always has been. So, individually, we have to try to then get along in a society that's very codependent, very dysfunctional, and quite messed up, right? And so it's really no wonder that we're kind of messed up. And he talks a whole lot about, like, the human beings, people, mankind, men, women, children, people just feeling bad about being human, feeling bad about not, being perfect, and there's no, and then shaming and blaming themselves, right? Because, they have these expectations and whatnot. It's really quite interesting to see what he says. Like he was saying yesterday, I was just reading from the webpage here, that codependence is on one level a defense system wherein we take ego credit if things in our life go the way we want them to. And if they do not, we blame somebody or something, because we were taught that doing life right would lead to happily ever after. And we think that something is wrong with us because we don't feel fulfilled and happy, so we blame others or the system or fate or whatever to help ourselves try to overcome the deep-seated feeling that there is something wrong with us. So codependence is a defense system that developed in reaction to a basic belief that being human was shameful or negative in some way. And there is a whole lot of that. I mean, I think human condition actually is like that. You know what I mean? And I think it's really quite sad. And I think that well, really on it's a pretty deep level, but really what he's talking about is very interesting. He says integration of some type of spiritual belief system that allows for the possibility that maybe we are not sinful and shameful, that maybe life is not about sin and punishment, but rather about cause and effect. So it's a major step in changing our relationship with life. So he says it's important to understand the cause and effect in our own lives, to start seeing how the patterns in our adult lives have been caused by our childhood experiences. And it is important to start looking at our lives from the perspective of understanding cause and effect instead of assessing blame. And that's what I was talking about yesterday. Really there were 4 years ago, really I had to sort of take myself out of the equation, and because when I was looking back at my past, and looking back at what had happened to me as a child, I was looking at it with my own emotional, heavy duty emotions, right? So if I was not looking at it as a third party and saying, okay, what happened to cause this? What happened to cause me to behave the way that I do, to take on these roles, take on these behaviors that are need to be changed and really are unhealthy. And so in order to do that, I sort of had to look at it a different way, which was more like he's talking about, like cause and effect, like what caused all this. Once I started to do that, I started to realize that wow, like it's no wonder I behave the way that I do. It's really no wonder that I have done in my life what I have done. And it really wasn't my fault, right? So I need to just learn how to change this stuff so that I can help myself, so I can see things differently, so I can, can't change the past, and that's one constant that just, at least keeps me somewhat sane, is the fact that you can't change the past. It's just done. But we can change really our today. We can change the way we feel about ourselves today. So that's what I did 4 years ago. I thought, man, I've really got to start changing the way that I feel about myself and the way that I feel about life, And but I can't change the past, so I'm going to have to then, take a look at why I've done what I did, and now learn how to correct it, and within my own life, so that I don't, end up, at the end of the road miserable and unhappy just because of what my parents did to me or what my brother did, because that's really truly letting them win. Like if I do that, and at the end of the road, I'm on my deathbed or something, and I'm just a miserable, unhappy person, because of what my parents did to me or one of my siblings, then they've won that. They've won, right? And I don't want that. Like that's my goal, is because I'm really a stubborn person, and I'm also very much a fighter, and so I'm like, no way, I am winning this, because like I did not deserve that, because none of us did. Anybody who's been abused, obviously does not deserve that, and and I look back at my different parts of myself, from so long ago. This portion of this stuff is about inner child healing, right? And so, I look back at all these portions of myself where I got stuck, because of the trauma, because of the abuse, and I obviously didn't deal with it at the time, right? Because I was just trying to live and cope, and I really was just trying to survive, and so, just trying to even stay mentally well enough to just continue on. You know what I mean? It's harsh, and none of us should ever have to do this, But then those areas got stuck. That's where I'm starting to really work right now to integrate, to change things for them, for these little people that are, for these little people that I was so long ago, these little children that, did not deserve what happened to them, but yet I had to get in touch with those parts and pieces of me, and learn how to self-nurture, learn how to, to get in touch with them so that I can move past these points where I got stuck. And so, it is helping. It is absolutely helping. It's been, there's better days than others. Some days I just, have a lot of flashbacks, have a lot of body memories, have a lot of problems. And then other days, I'm like, well, I feel pretty good, And I think that's just sort of the way it is for me. I don't know how it is for other people. But, I mean, like things are definitely looking up, because I'm able to actually, see stuff that I didn't want to see, that I was not able to cope with before. But because I'm doing my healing work, it's allowing me, I actually feel pretty strong, because I'm like, wow, I can do this. There is light at the end of the tunnel here. There is hope. There is help, And it's a good feeling, for sure, because compared to where I was 4 years ago, you know what I mean? So this is the thing. It does help. Eventually, I see so many survivors out here who really are in front of me saying, hey, come on, you can do this. We can do this, right? There's so many people out here who have been through some horrific stuff, right? and have made their way through most of their healing journey, right? And it's awesome to see that. It's a bit of hope for us all, right? And so I just like what he has to say about that. We need to really take a look at the cause and effect of why we're behaving the way we do. Excuse me, my voice is kind of going in. And so I just got up, actually. And so he says, when we start wearing a new pair of glasses that allows us to see cause and effect instead of viewing life through a filter of shame and blame, we move into a growth paradigm in our relationship with life. So we start to shift out of a victim place into a place of being empowered as a co-creator in our life. This is very interesting. I like this because, that's so true. That's what I was talking about yesterday, really, and the day before, was that I was viewing myself sort of as a victim. It's not like I was running around saying, "Oh, I'm a victim, woe is me," because my mother did that, and I didn't want to do that. I just, I think what it is I didn't look at myself as a survivor. I just took it and moved on, and always felt somewhat a victim, even though I didn't run around screaming it out. I'm a victim. And so until I started to look at things a little differently, that was really the only way I was going to see it. So then I started to think, wow, no, I got to see things differently. And so I get, that new pair of glasses he's talking about. That's just a new way of looking at things, Like he says, we start to shift out of a victim place into a place of being empowered as a co-creator of our life. And that's what happened to me 4 years ago. I just started to say, I said, man, I have to do this. I have to allow myself to heal. So I'm going to have to see things differently. Because I had been looking at the thing at my life and my past and all these horrible things that happened to my family and to me and what was done to me the same way for 41 years, which was out of, I guess I could say that those glasses I had on were just glasses that were full of hatred, full of anger, full of rage. They were glasses that were just going to keep me in that victim, mentality, of being so wounded, right, that I wasn't able to see it differently. Right? Even though I knew the story, I knew the situation. I knew why my parents did what they did. I knew why my dad did what he did to my mother. I knew that he was mentally ill, and I knew they both grew up abused. This is stuff that I knew for many, many, many years. But I never really looked at it as third party. So I had way too high emotions about it because it hurt. Absolutely, it did. You know what I mean? And so obviously, right? That's why the damage is done. The thing is until I started to look at it as third person, a different party, saying, okay, let's look in on this, let's see what, why this happened and why I'm, the way that I am. I couldn't see it any other way, except for out of these glasses that was full of hatred, full of shame, rage, anger, just the whole thing, right? And just sadness, grief, a lot of grief, right? That I really had not dealt with, And it's like some little bits here and there, right, obviously, but not on a whole, not on a level of, okay, how can we do this and how can I heal, right? That was my question. I thought other people can do it. Why can't I do it? It's a big, wow, other people are healing. What's the matter with me that I'm not going to allow myself to heal? I started to get on myself because I'm like, this is ridiculous. I'm 41 years old. Like, how long am I going to suffer this, and not allow myself to get help, right? And it was because that's the pattern that my parents set up for me, and that's the pattern that I continued on until 41 years old. And I thought, I can't do this anymore, I need help. It's like, hello, that's bad, but you know what? That's what people do to people, right? I never ever reached out to anybody, never looked into healing information, never even really, I used to think about it. I think about it over the years because I knew my child was there, like in my when I hit 30, right? But I wouldn't. I just didn't know how to look at the whole thing differently, other than with these glasses, these sunglasses that were full of rage and hatred, right? I couldn't see. I just saw myself as a victim, right? So that one day I actually took charge and I said, no, this is ridiculous. Like I did not deserve that. I got to learn how to love myself. I need to learn how to love all the wounded parts of myself. I need to learn how to get rid of that shame, get rid of that, anger, the hatred, because it was killing me, right? And in every way. So it was really, really toxic and horrific. And it's just a bad way to live, right? He says once we start looking at the cause and effect by dynamics in our life, then we can start striving for some balance. So one of the paradigm busting concepts that was introduced to me in early recovery was a simple statement about cause and effect. If you keep doing what you have been doing, you will keep getting what you have been getting. So yeah, that's just so true. You won't have any different results if you keep doing the same things, right? And that's, a lot of, really it is completely true. Yeah. If you just keep feeling the same way about something, then you're just always going to be feeling the same way about something. It's not going to change. It's like if you keep doing the same things, you're going to end up with the same results. And I've been doing that my whole life, right? In every area of my life, financially, behaviorally, right? So I'm working on changing that stuff, right? And of course, it doesn't happen overnight, and I haven't been all that, maybe some people have been able to do this stuff overnight, but I know I sure haven't. Oh, I got a lot of friends here today. Hello, I got Chris, and I got Gypsy Witch, and thanks very much for being here. It's nice to see you guys. But yeah, this is not something that this is happening overnight for me. It's taking me like 4 years to get where I am today, and I'm still really very much in the middle of my healing journey. But I'm doing so much better. So that's the thing, and it does help. So I can't work on it all at once. So I'm just doing pieces and bits where I feel that I really need to address this, and where I need to address something. Where right now I'm addressing the CSA incest. So obviously that's a huge issue for me. I can't take on trying to quit smoking right now. It's like I just can't add that to the fire because that's just, you can only put so much pressure on yourself. You can only, really do so much, right, in a period of time. So it's got to kind of be in pieces and chunks, where I can sort of change some of these behaviors and change some of this stuff, because like there's no way for me to just be able to say, oh, I'm just going to do it all right now and I'll just be better tomorrow. And I really wish that was possible, to be honest with you, but I just don't think it is, you know what I mean? Not for me anyway. So I mean, it's a work in progress, and I just feel like, I got to live my life too at the same time. It's not like I can just go and check myself into some sort of a resort, and some sort of a healing resort, and just deal with everything I need to deal with, I mean, I gotta live in the meantime, right? So I have to be able to cope and maintain. But what it does for me is it allows me to set up a routine that's manageable. So that at the end of this, I think healing journey really is a lifelong process. But when I've come down the road a little further, and things don't hurt as much as they used to, and I'm feeling pretty good, I'll already have this routine set up that I can do life at the same time. And I think that's why I like doing this, because I don't have to stop what I'm doing to continue through my healing journey. I can still live my life. I can still work. I can still be in a relationship with my sweetheart. I can look after my pets. But it sets up a real positive kind of a situation where I can do life at the same time. But not everybody can, and I think that's really nothing to be ashamed about. You know what I mean? Like, it's not something. It's just works for me. You know what I mean? Not everything that works for one person is going to work for somebody else, right? And there's no shame in that, right? It's just the way. It's just the way it is. We're all different. We've all been through different things. You know what I mean? And we're all dealing with different things at different times, right? So that's why some people do need to do that. They need to just fully immerse themselves into some healthcare or into some situations that's going to help them out. Whereas I'm able to do this kind of little bit by little bit by little bit, and I'm actually comfortable doing it this way. It seems to make sense for me. It allows me to really get a hold of things. You know what I mean? It's not happening so quickly that I can't grasp what I need to grasp. You know what I mean? And I think that for me it's important, because I want this stuff to be a lifelong. This healing process, really, I want this to be a lifelong, something that just says, hey, I'm not going to forget this stuff 6 months down the road, or 2 years down the road, or 5 years down the road, and end up back in the same spot I was on that couch ready to kill myself. Right? I mean, this is the thing. I'm setting up patterns of behavior for myself in little bits and pieces where I can change some of these behaviors little tiny bit by little tiny bit, so that it starts to become a pattern. And I see it, very much a pattern, and it works. It's a process. It's a pattern. So it seems to be working for me. I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not a therapist. I'm not a counselor. Like, I just know that in my daily walk, I've been able to handle some of the CSA, the incest stuff that really would have 4 years ago, sent me down to the pits of hell. And I've actually been able to manage it, you know what I mean, without too much discomfort, a little discomfort, right? Because obviously it's painful to look back at that, painful to look back at what happened to us, right? So, years ago, 4 years ago, I would have probably been ready to kill myself again, just because I would be in so much pain and so much anguish. But because I've done this, working on my healing journey and done these 4 years, I'm feeling quite empowered and quite strong to say, I can do this, So this is the thing, whatever, we all going to, need different things, and what works for me may not work for somebody else, right? That's for sure. So he says, moving on to what he says, we start recovery as soon as we realize that there is something to recover from, and that we can take some action to change, that we can be part of the solution instead of just being a victim of the problem. So integrating a spiritual belief system that helps us take the shame out of being human enables us to start being able to see more clearly that we have some responsibility, that our behavior and attitudes have been casual in how our lives have unfolded, and we can start finding some balance in the middle ground between blaming others and blaming ourselves. So we can start taking responsibility for our part in what has happened, our side of the street, and holding others responsible for their part in things. And that's just so true. Really, it's interesting what he has to say there. That's quite a lot of information in one little paragraph. Like we start to recover as soon as we realize there's something to recover from. That's why, 4 years ago when I was sitting on a couch there ready to self-injure and I was planning my suicide, I was thinking, how long do I have to be like this? How long am I going to be like this, Because it always really broke me up that I would, even consider killing myself. 2 of my brothers killed themselves. My mother was always talking suicide, right, or threatening to kill me, one or the other. My dad was always trying to kill himself. He actually really was trying to kill himself, run down the street, in the middle of the night, trying to get hit by cars on the freeway, naked sometimes, right? And, the guy was really messed up. And, and he tried to drive me and my sister over a cliff with him one time in the car. Like, he was totally suicidal. Like, really, really psychotic, right? And so suicide was just something that we all thought about, you know what I mean? To be honest with you, my oldest sister was 18 years older than me. When she grew up in the same house I did, let me tell you that. Her and her husband had guns, and it's down in the States, right? We live in New Mexico, Arizona area. And they had guns, really, really super nice guns, and they loved their guns, right? My sister would go for drives sometimes for 3 or 4 days, and she would be threatening to kill herself, and we would never really know. Like, we didn't know if we should, like, call the police and put a call in for her license plate, you know what I mean? Or if we should just let her take that drive and let her figure it out herself, that, she wasn't going to kill herself, this kind of stuff, right? And, she always came home, right? But she had a miserable life, and, she was the oldest. She was the oldest, I'm the youngest. And all the middle siblings are dead, right? And then there's a couple, and one was next to my sister who's still alive, who's 16 years older than me, and we have no contact, right? And then my other sister who's 5 years older than me, we have no contact because I cut them all off, right? But, we're all suicidal, right? And that's the whole issue. And I made, 4 years ago, when I was sitting there, I thought, man, why can't I heal? Like, why can't I just be like everybody else and, and learn to heal? I see all these other people doing this. Well, why can't I allow myself to do this, right? And I started to get really mad. And anger really is what propelled me to change my behaviors, because I thought, this is ridiculous. 41 years old, I'm still in so much pain and so much anguish, and I don't want to take my life. And I'm like, why? Like no one's going to care. It's not like anybody in my family would care. They would just be like, haha, well, I told you she was a loser, just like her brothers. Right? I heard that my whole life. I thought, okay, nobody's really going to care. So why am I doing this? What's the main purpose of me? And I started to realize that, no, I can't allow myself to do this, because that would allow my abusers to win. I started to get really pissed off. And then I started to realize that, man, I really do have a lot of work to do. So I better get on it, and that was like 4.5 years ago. And until we realize there's something to recover from, we're not going to know, that we need to recover from it. So that's one statement here. He's really said a lot here in this one piece right here. And we can take some action to change, that we can be part of the solution instead of just being a victim of the problem, and that's where I was at. And we can start finding some balance in the middle ground between blaming others and blaming ourselves. And I mean, literally, I do put the blame on my parents for, like, I don't like people that try to tell me, well, you have to forgive and forget, and you just have to be able to just not blame them. It's not really their fault, and that whole passive kind of psychotic stuff that people will tell you. Like, my parents were psychotic. They were psychotic, evil, twisted people, and they hurt me, and I am blaming them. Absolutely. I know exactly. I mean, people that read my book, A Life of Death and Redemption, I mean, that was just a very small bit, just a small blog. I mean, I didn't really go into all the details, like I said. Like, it wasn't meant to, like, it's not a full, complete story, right? I wanted people to see some of the hell that I had to go through and that my family went through, just to say, look, this is what happened. This is some of what happened, and if you're a survivor, first of all, keep looking for that hope and that help where you can find it. And second of all, for the public to know what it's like for a child to grow up like that and have to deal with that kind of stuff, But it wasn't a full, complete picture. I mean, my parents were hideous monsters, And hey, to the neighbors, they were great. The neighbors just loved my parents. I mean, some of them could see through. Well, there were some of the neighbors that lived on the block that we grew up on, this neighborhood that we sort of hung around for most of my life. Some of the people did know, and they could see right through them. And they wouldn't let their children come over to the house because the cops were always there. The ambulance was always there. My mother was always screaming, bloody murder. If she wasn't screaming out of pain because my dad was raping her or beating on her, then she was screaming at me or screaming at one of the other, or screaming at my dad, cursing, vulgar language, kicking us out of the house, throwing me out of the house all beaten up and scratched and bloody. My parents were evil, twisted people. The blame goes where it goes. Now, I can't help that they were abused, but I don't care. I still put the blame where the blame goes. You pick up a stick and you hit somebody with it. Who did the action? Well, the person who picked up the stick and hit somebody. They're to blame, right? My parents are completely to blame for this situation. You know what I mean? My brother who raped and sodomized me, he is completely to blame for me being barren today. I can't sit there and say it was somebody else. You know what I mean? Or it was, I don't know, something happened, and it's like no. Blame goes where it goes, and I think that's why I'm actually sane, because I was actually able to always point the finger at them. Even while I was young and getting my ass kicked, I was still pointing my finger at them. I was like, "You bastards, look what you're doing to me!" And it did land me some beatings, but I didn't care. I was like, "You look what you're doing." I mean, that was my sanity factor. So I've always been able to put the blame where it goes, right? Now, I think what he's talking about here, because I've had people say stuff like that. I even had my abuser dad call me last Christmas and tell me, you need to just move on and get over it. We need to forgive and forget. And I'm like, okay, coming from my abuser dad, who's psychotic and mentally ill and still is so screwed up in the head and evil and twisted, and I'm supposed to, listen to you? You know what I mean? He's telling me I need to forgive and forget. I'm like, well, isn't that convenient, right? I mean, who was on the boot end of this whole thing, right? I mean, he was the one wearing the boot doing the kicking, right? So for me, I'm like, okay, I don't need to listen to that, so I cut them all off, right? But this is the thing. I think what Robert Burney is talking about, as far as balance, the middle ground between blaming others and blaming ourselves, we do need to take responsibility for what portion of it is our responsibility. Like the drug use. I mean, honestly, like I did drugs until the age of 21, and I did that myself. Like, nobody picked up those drugs and put them in my mouth. Nobody, nobody forced me to do drugs. I did drugs because I wanted to do drugs. Same with smoking now. I smoke because I want to. I really don't blame my smoking habits on my parents. You know what I mean? Like, I smoke because I need to cope. And I guess some of that can be their responsibility. Some of it's mine. I choose to do it. So if I choose to hurt myself today, then it is truly my fault. You know what I mean? Like, this is why I think it's important to actually get a balance in there between that, and take some responsibility for our actions, because that's what my parents never did, right? Thanks, everybody, for being here. We're going to pick this up back tomorrow. Appreciate you all spending this time with me, my good friends, and if I can get you any information, let me know, and don't ever give up. Like, I'm telling you, like, not ever. If you have to, you phone a crisis line, that's what I'm going to do. That's what I said, I was like, I refuse to go down. I refuse to go down. No way. Not after what I've been through. I will, if I have to, phone a crisis line, right? I'll do something. I'll get professional help, and that's the last thing I want to do. I don't care, because I'm going to allow myself to heal, right? And I'm not going to allow myself to go down, to the pits of hell anymore, right? Like, I deserve so much better, and so do you. So make sure that you stick around and you get some help, right? Make sure that you do reach out. So have a great day, everybody, and we'll talk to you. We'll talk to you tomorrow morning, same time, same place, 6 o'clock a.m. And thanks for being here. I really appreciate it. Have a great day.